Did you know that over 2 billion people still live in extreme poverty, yet the richest countries once faced the same traps? Beat Today, you'll uncover the real reasons why some nations can't escape poverty and the shocking solutions experts rarely talk about. Stay with me. By the end, you'll see why history, corruption, and climate are just the start, and how a few bold moves could finally break the cycle. Many countries are trapped by their geography, facing higher costs to trade and limits on growth. Coastal nations often boost exports by using ports, while landlocked states pay up to 50% more to trade the same goods. Harsh climates also shape productivity. Tropical heat and heavy rains can damage roads and spread diseases that slow work on farms and in factories. In contrast, temperate zones enjoy longer growing seasons and easier transportation over solid ground. For example, Norway's long coastline and fjords cut shipping costs and help it export oil and fish efficiently. Meanwhile, landlocked Burkina Faso struggles to export cotton and gold because goods must travel through neighboring countries first. Poor infrastructure in hilly or rainy areas makes building roads expensive. Fewer roads mean fewer markets and fewer buyers. Historical patterns matter too. Regions with malaria suffered high death rates, which discouraged investments in education and clinics. This created a cycle where low health reduced work output, and low output meant less money to improve health services. Natural resources sometimes help, like oil in Nigeria, but without strong institutions, resource wealth can fuel corruption instead of schools or hospitals. Geographic challenges alone don't doom a country, but they set the stage for low productivity cycles that are hard to break. Overcoming these obstacles often requires outside investment in roads, ports, and health programs. Small steps that can unlock big changes. Strong institutions are the engine that turns money into progress. When people trust the courts to enforce contracts, businesses invest without fear of having deals stolen. In countries like Singapore, clear property rights mean entrepreneurs can borrow against land and expand shops or factories. In contrast, when paperwork drags on for months, as it does in some places, small businesses stay small because every license feels like a gamble. A skilled civil service also makes a huge difference. Ghana's well-trained tax agency collects revenues fairly, funding schools and clinics, while weak administrations in other countries lose funds to delays and errors. Simply pouring in foreign aid can't fix broken systems. Building honest courts, fast bureaucracies, and secure land titles unlocks long-term growth. In many poor countries, powerful leaders secretly steer public money into their own pockets, leaving schools and clinics starved of funds. In the Philippines, the pork barrel scam saw politicians channel $1.5 million into fake NGOs, denying real projects the cash they needed. Nigeria loses billions every year through inflated contracts and judicial bribery, so roads go unbuilt and hospitals stay in bad shape. When a few families control big industries, like Brazil's Petrobras oil giant, they funnel profits to cronies instead of fixing the power grid. In South Africa, the Gupta brothers used their ties to the president to snatch up government contracts worth $7 billion, deepening poverty for millions. By using judges, police, and customs officers to protect their schemes, elites make it almost impossible to track or punish them. Local leaders in rural areas form secret deals to grab programs meant for farmers, so techniques that could boost harvests never reach small plots. This hidden network of favors and bribes creates a cycle where public services stay weak and people lose faith in their governments. Breaking this cycle means revealing the money trails, strengthening watchdogs, and giving communities real power to demand change. Without these steps, public money will keep vanishing into private hands and development will stall. Countries that borrow too much end up paying back more than they can afford, and that pushes them into tighter corners. Imagine a nation taking a big loan to build roads, only to spend half its yearly budget on interest payments, leaving nothing for schools or health clinics. That's what happened in Zambia when rising interest rates doubled its repayment costs, cutting funds for basic services. Lenders often demand strict rules, like cutting social programs, before they approve the next loan, so governments keep shrinking investments that help people climb out of poverty. In Sri Lanka, borrowing for luxury projects without clear revenue plans forced painful tax hikes that hurt the poorest families. Sometimes, when one lender won't extend more credit, countries turn to riskier financiers who charge even higher fees, repeating the same trap over and over. Each new loan looks like a solution but ends up adding another layer of debt. To escape this loop, nations need fairer loan terms, transparent budgets, and plans that tie borrowing to real projects, steps that can shift borrowing from a burden into a bridge for growth. High taxes on imports make it hard for small producers to sell abroad. When Bangladesh factories try to export clothes, they face extra fees that push their prices above cheaper rivals. Strict rules on quality and safety mean a cocoa farmer in Ivory Coast must pay for expensive certifications before Europe will buy his beans. Shipping costs rise when goods sit at ports for weeks because of red tape. Think a Kenyan avocado stuck under inspections, losing its freshness and value. Some countries ban certain crops to protect local farmers, so rice growers in Vietnam can't enter markets guarded by heavy quotas. Even simple things like requiring special labels or testing add days of delay and hundreds of dollars per shipment. All these barriers raise prices for buyers and cut profits for sellers, keeping trade locked behind walls instead of opening doors for growth. Many kids in Mali leave school early and lack basic reading, writing, and math skills that factories and offices need. Without enough teachers or classrooms, students in rural regions often study outdoors under trees, falling years behind urban peers. In Bangladesh, garment factories struggle because many workers haven't had technical training on modern machines and safety rules. Missing even a few years of schooling can cut future wages by up to 20% in developing countries. Health problems also steal workdays. Malaria in Nigeria costs the economy $1.8 billion every year in lost output. Children with chronic illnesses like diarrhea miss weeks of class each year, leaving gaps that make it hard to catch up. Adults who never learned marketable skills often settle for low pay, and companies bypass them for foreign hires. In Peru, expanding free preschool and nutrition programs led to a 25% rise in adult earnings for participants. Closing gaps in education and healthcare lets people earn more, so governments can collect more taxes to fund better schools and clinics. Investing in human capital flips labor markets from traps into ladders, building stronger economies for everyone. When a country depends on aid, its leaders often must follow the donor's script, cutting health or education budgets just to unlock the next loan. In the 1980s, many African nations faced strict rules from the IMF, forcing them to sell state-owned businesses and slash social spending, even when children needed vaccines and farmers needed seeds. Meanwhile, powerful nations use military bases and trade deals to shape local policies. In Djibouti, hosting foreign navies brings cash, but also pressure to choose sides in global rivalries. In places like Angola, oil contracts have favored overseas companies, leaving local governments with little say over their own resources. This hidden tug of war steers development toward outside interests. To break free, communities must claim real ownership of their own plans and demand that help arrives without strings attached. Poor countries suffer the most from climate shocks because they lack resources to prepare, respond, and recover. From deadly storms to disease outbreaks, each crisis deepens poverty by destroying homes, crops, and health systems. Without strong infrastructure or safety nets, these nations face a vicious cycle of damage and debt that few can escape. Extreme weather and economic shocks. Storms, floods, and droughts hit poor countries harder because they often rely on agriculture and lack protective infrastructure. In Malawi, Cyclone Freddy wiped out thousands of homes and farms, leaving families with no savings to rebuild. With fewer flood barriers and weaker early warning systems, a simple downpour can wipe out a season's income and force communities into debt. Disease burdens and health impacts. Warmer temperatures and standing water-fueled diseases like malaria and cholera, which sicken millions each year. In Nigeria, malaria alone costs the economy nearly $4 billion annually in treatment and lost workdays. After floods in South Asia, waterborne illnesses surge, overwhelming hospitals that already lack beds and medicine. Environmental degradation and social stress. Soil erosion, desertification, and sea level rise shrink usable land, pushing farmers onto marginal plots that yield less. In Bangladesh, saltwater intrusion into rice paddies has cut harvests by up to 30%, driving families to migrate for work. As resources dwindle, conflicts over water and grazing land rise, fueling instability and displacement. Weak infrastructure and limited coping capacity. Most low-income countries lack strong roads, hospitals, and power grids, making recovery slow and expensive. After a storm, blocked roads delay aid for weeks, and broken clinics can't treat the injured. Without insurance or savings, households must sell livestock or take high-interest loans, trapping them in deeper poverty. Breaking the cycle. Investing in early warning systems, resilient infrastructure, and universal healthcare can cut losses by up to 70% in some regions. Training communities in flood-resistant farming and building climate-proof schools help families stay safe and maintain income. With global support and fair financing, poor countries can turn each shock into an opportunity to build back smarter and stronger. Technology and innovation divide. How digital exclusion and lack of R&D keep economies stuck at the technological frontier. In many low-income nations, spotty internet and weak research funding leave businesses stuck using old tools, while innovators chase opportunities abroad, widening the gap with richer countries. Connectivity gaps. A lack of fast, reliable internet keeps small shops from joining online markets, so artisans in rural villages sell only locally. When undersea cables land in a few coastal cities, inland towns pay double for slow connections and miss out on digital training. Mobile data can help, but in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, barely half the population is online. R&D shortfalls. Governments in low-income regions spend under 1% of GDP on research versus over 2% in advanced economies, so labs stay empty and ideas go unfunded. PhD graduates often leave home for better labs, creating a brain drain that starves local firms of skilled talent. Turning the tide. Investing in community networks and tech hubs can cut connection costs by 60% and spark local startups. Partnerships between foreign universities and local institutes have doubled patent applications in places like Kenya and Vietnam. With fair spectrum rules and small grants for innovators, digital exclusion can shrink and economies can leap forward. Small, well-chosen projects can spark big changes when rules start working fairly and money reaches the right hands. In Bangladesh, tiny loans to women helped family businesses grow, turning street-side stalls into busy shops. When governments simplify land records in places like Rwanda, farmers finally prove ownership and borrow to buy better seeds. Brazil's cash transfer program showed that giving families a little help for school and health boosts literacy and job skills across generations. Even fixing one hospital or repaving a key road can pull an entire region forward when local leaders manage funds clearly and transparently. These wins build trust. People see that taxes and aid actually pay for schools, clinics, and markets. Over time, investors notice stability and start new factories, creating jobs beyond farming. By combining smart spending on people with honest systems that enforce laws and fight corruption, countries can break free from old traps and steer themselves towards steady, lasting growth. Don't forget to tap like and hit subscribe so you never miss a deep dive into the world's biggest puzzles. Now here's one to chew on. If you could reshape your country's future with just one bold move, whether it's cutting corruption, investing in schools, or opening new markets, what would you choose first?